When adding or subtracting rational expressions, what we need to look for is whether or not we have a common denominator. So anytime you add or subtract fractions, doesn't matter if they're rational expressions or not, you need the denominator to be exactly the same before you can actually do the addition or subtraction. So in this first example, you can see that we have an x squared and an x squared in our denominators, so we do have a common denominator. So when working with fractions and you have a common denominator, that denominator does not change. So I know that x squared will be in the denominator. Now the numerator, what we do is we just take the numerators of our two fractions, the 3x and the 5x, and we're actually going to add those together. So 3x plus 5x gives us 8x. So we've added our two fractions together. We already had the common denominator, so we have 8x over x squared. From here, you just want to see if you can do any simplifying. Anytime that you have an x divided by an x, we can keep simplifying this problem. A couple ways to approach it. You could look at this and say, all right, well, you're dividing the same base of x, which means you subtract your exponents. So the 8 would stay the same, and when you divide the same base, you keep your base of x and subtract your exponents, and you get x to the negative 1. Well, now there's that negative exponent, which has to move down to the bottom to be positive, so the 8 stays where it's at over x to the positive 1 power. And that's our final answer. Another way to think about this is if you have one x on the top and two x's on the bottom, this 1x will cancel away 1x from down here. So you could say you know that the 8 stays the same, and if the x on the top cancels away one of these two x's, how many would you have left? Well, you'd have only 1x left, and it would still be in the bottom of your fraction. So you could get to the 8 over x that way also. Alright, so our next example looks like it might be a little bit more complicated, but that's alright. You see that we are subtracting fractions, so you want to make sure you have a common denominator. In this case, we do have the common denominator. So your denominator stays the same. We know that it will be x squared plus 3x minus 4. And we're going to go ahead and take the numerator 2x plus 14 and subtract a negative 2x plus 12. So you can do this a couple ways also. You could just do straight subtraction and say 2x minus a negative 2x. That's the thing that usually people make a mistake on. When you subtract the negative, it does become positive. If you like to add the opposite, you can take this subtraction and turn it into a plus sign. So we're going to add all of the opposite signs. So we have to change the signs in our second numerator. So that makes this a positive 2x and a negative 2. So now we have a 2x plus another 2x, which gives us 4x. And then we have 14 plus a negative 2, which gives us a 12. So 4x plus 12. Alright, so every time that you add your fractions together and you get your one fraction as your answer, you want to think about how you might be able to simplify this. Factor if you can, see if there's anything that might cancel, like in our last example. On this one, I think we need to try factoring and see what we end up with. Our numerator, you can take out a greatest common factor of 4. So you factor out the 4 and you're left with x plus 3 over, now this denominator, that's our trinomial factoring. Do we have factors of negative 4 that add up to a positive 3? So factors of negative 4 that add up to a positive 3 will be x plus 4 and x minus 1. So we have 4 times negative 1, which gives us negative 4, and 4 plus the negative 1, which gives us that positive 3. Alright, so once you have it factored, you want to look to see if you do have anything that might cancel. In the numerator, you have a 4. We don't have a 4 that's not attached to something else down here. You have an x plus 3, and you don't have any x plus 3's down here. So actually, there is no reducing that we can do in this example. So this 4x plus 12 over the x squared plus 3x minus 4, that will be our final answer.